Welcome to Finding Holiness, where we delve into timeless Torah wisdom, revealing the sacred in everyday moments. Join us on a journey to elevate your spirituality and discover holiness in every aspect of life. I'm your host, Rabbi David Kadosh, and together, let's embark on a path of spiritual exploration. I hope you enjoy this next episode. Okay, Erev Tov, good to be back. Good to be back in our second session here, studying the concept of personal growth in Judaism. We actually left off in a little bit of a cliffhanger last time, where I said I was going to speak about the God factor. How does Hashem play a role in our everyday striving for self-perfection or personal growth in our midot and whatnot? There was one of the founders of Silicon Graphics. His name was Jim Clark, and he was asked once the following question. He said, "What would make you happy? What would make you happy?" And at the time, the first time he was asked this question, he says, "I would like to make a fortune of $10 million." He was comparing himself to the founder of, he was comparing himself before he created Netscape. Netscape was, at the time, I remember Netscape as a kid, was like a file sharing program. People used to send files. Netscape was a huge thing in my time, like in high school. Then he got his $10 million. He said, "Okay, what's next?" So he said $100 million. And then he came up with a company called Healthion. Okay, that deals with a bunch of health pharmaceutical. Okay, he goes, "Okay, now you made your $100 million. What's next?" So he says $1 billion. And then finally, when he hit $1 billion, he says, "I won't be satisfied until I reach the level of Larry Ellison." Larry Ellison was the founder of Oracle, another huge software company, and he was worth $13 billion at the time. So what kind of values does this guy, Jim Clark, choose for his choice of a role model? He wants to be at the top. To him, that's what counts. Clearly, money. Money is never enough. Doesn't seem like anything enough is enough for Jim Clark. He's never satisfied with all the things that he has, all things that he's accomplished. So what about us? So what about us as Jews? Okay, clearly Jim Clark is not the perfect role model. So who is our role model? Our role model is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is our role model. We are asked to emulate Hashem and His perfection. He is the best possible teacher that we have. The ultimate role model in our personal growth discovery is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And because like we spoke about last week, everyone knows this is something that is important for us to do. And the more that we work on it, the more in-depth and the more meaning we can attribute to personal growth. So it has to be that we have to look at Hashem. And if you look at many of the sources, we see this concept appear over and over again. Most famously, we are asked, Moshe Rabbeinu, in giving his final speech to Bnei Israel, he says, "And now, Bnei Israel, ma Hashem shoel meimach." What does God want from you? Kim le'ira. He just wants you to fear Him. He just wants you to fear Him. Lalechet bechol derachav. Lalechet bechol derachav means to walk in all of His ways, to love Him, but to walk in His ways. Even Yirmiyahu says that we want Hashem we want Him to understand me, we want Him to know me, and He wants to feel that we know Him, and He wants to feel that we understand Him. But this is very difficult, because how am I supposed to emulate God? God is perfect. If you picture in your mind, and we're talking about perfection soon, but if you picture in your mind what perfection looks like, it's not God. God is perfect of perfect. What you think perfect is not Hashem. He's infinite. He's beyond human comprehension. So how does the Torah tell me to walk in His ways? What are we being told to do when we're being asked to emulate Hashem? How am I supposed to copy and imitate Him? And if it's something that is unrelatable. So the Gemara actually asks this question. The Gemara in Masechet Sota asks as follows. He says, "Ela la'aloch achar midotav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu." You just have to follow God's basic, I say basic, but it really is serious character traits. Mahu malbish arumim, afata halbesh arumim. Because just like God clothes those who are naked, so too you have to clothe the naked. Obviously, this is a metaphor for giving people that are in need. Just as HaKadosh Baruch Hu mevaker cholim, afata mevaker cholim. God comes and visits the sick, as we saw in last week's parasha with God visiting Abraham. So too you have to visit the sick. Just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu menachem avelim, just like He goes and comforts the mourners. Afata menachem avelim. So too you have to also comfort the mourners. So now all the acts that are listed here in this Gemara, charity, visiting the sick, comforting the mourners, burying the dead, so on and so forth, they're all acts of kindness. They're all acts of goodness. And therefore, the Talmud is telling us the way to emulate Hashem, the way to emulate God, is to engage acts in kindness. There was once a story of Rav Yecheskel Abramsky, Zecher Tzaddik Rachai, was a very prominent Torah scholar. He was a very serious individual. And once he was operated on, and to regain his strength, he used to, for therapy, he used to walk around his neighborhood just to regain strength in his body and his legs. One day he noticed a 5-year-old girl sitting and crying. And he bent over and told the girl, "Why are you crying? What's wrong?" And she said, "Because my friend Miriam said that my dress isn't nice." She started crying. And said, "What's your name?" He said, "My name is Shoshana." So Rabbi Abramsky looked at her and says, "You tell your friend that your name is beautiful and your dress is very, very beautiful." And the little girl with the biggest smile on her face, she ran off. She got complimented by this great rabbi who she probably didn't even know. And all the students who saw Rabbi Abramsky went up to him. And, he was always known for his very strict demeanor, always, being a rigid type of individual. He commanded respect, he commanded reverence and fear. And it seemed a little bit out of character that he would go up to a 5-year-old girl. You're talking about like Rosh Hashivas here material. Like it's not, so what's happening over here? And he answered his students and he says, "Don't you get it? Our job is to imitate God. Our job is to emulate His ways and follow in His ways." What does the Navi say? The Navi says, and we actually quote this pasuk after someone loses a relative. It's Umacha Adonai Elohim Dim'a Me'al Kol Panim. Hashem in the future will wipe away the tears Me'al Kol Panim, from all faces. And he says, even the face of a 5-year-old girl. Just because she's a 5-year-old girl doesn't mean that she's irrelevant. And if I can make her happy, if I have an opportunity to make her happy, so I'm going to make her happy. So that's just kindness. And kindness is not really, kindness is huge. It's important, but it doesn't make up all of our traits that we have or that we look to perfect. Every individual is made up with numerous traits and numerous midot and tendencies that are all measured differently. That's why they're called midot, by the way. What's a midah? A midah is a measurement. In Hebrew, midah is measurement, because each one of us contains tendencies and traits that are different from each other, and we all have to measure them appropriately to conduct our lives the right way that we need to do. We spoke about, just before the shiur, we spoke about this concept of the middle, because how am I supposed to measure this? Which way am I supposed to follow when it comes to my midot? So the Rambam is very famous, Maimonides is very famous for the following law that he gives in Hilchot Deot, and he talks about the middle path, the golden path, he calls it. That every person should strive to take what is not near to one extreme or near to the opposite extreme, but the middle. And constantly evaluate himself or herself in that specific midah that they're trying to perfect. So a person should not be overly generous and give money all over the place, and at the same time he shouldn't be totally stingy and not give anything. But he's got to find the balance. He's got to find the balance. If you're overly happy, then that's a problem, because then no one's going to take you seriously. And there's times where you can't be happy. There's times where there needs to be a level of seriousness. He should only work to attain what he needs. He shouldn't be frivolous. He shouldn't be depressed. He's got to find the middle ground. And he says that approach of the middle ground is what the pasuk says. When the Torah says that you have to emulate God, when Moshe tells Bnei Israel you have to follow all of God's ways, that's what he meant. He meant the middle ground. So you have to think of yourself. Again, every person has their own different midot. So everyone measures themselves differently than their friend. Okay, so I'm a stingy person. I don't like to give money. It bothers me. I don't know. I feel like I earned this money. Why do I gotta give it? Why do I gotta spend it? I don't want to spend on a slice of pizza. I want to keep the money myself because I think that I'm going to be buried with this money. And this is what I'm thinking. I'm just throwing ideas out there. It's a problem. I know it's a problem. So step one is it's a problem. Great. So now what? So I'm on this side of the stinginess level. Okay. How do I get to the middle? The Rambam says you want to get to the middle, go to the opposite extreme. Right? If you go to the opposite extreme, right? If you have a folded paper and you want to try to get that paper straight, right? So what you got to do? You got to fold it the other way, right? You got to fold it the other way, exactly the opposite. It's the opposite extreme, and then it kind of balances out. So same idea. So now I got to spend a certain amount of my life and time giving and giving and giving and giving, okay, to remove those evil tendencies of stinginess and get myself into the middle. And same was the opposite. If I'm over generous, then and I'm spending too much money, and now I'm in debt, and I can't afford things because I just love to spend on things that I probably don't need, then I got to find the willpower to go the other side. So that's the golden mean according to the Rambam. The next part is the importance of striving for perfection. Now, this is not easy. Hashem created us so that we can fulfill His will, so that we can perform His mitzvot, and thereby He gives us goodness, and that we can inherit that goodness. And the way to merit that goodness is to emulate Hashem by trying to be perfect. I'm trying to emulate the perfection of God. The rabbis tell us that Noam Elimelech actually says that a man has two purposes on earth. Purpose number one is to fulfill mitzvot, and by fulfilling mitzvot, you're not transgressing any sins or iniquities. Right? God tells me this is what I need to do. I need to honor my parents, so I got to honor my parents. And I don't think much about it. I just honor my parents. I have to give tzedakah, 10%, whatever it is. I have to stand up for an old person. I stand up for an old person. I can't seal. I won't seal. That is level one. Level one is this concept of shomer Torah mitzvot, and also by doing that, not transgressing averot. Don't speak lashon hara, so on and so forth. Second level, says the Noam Elimelech, is the idea that everything else that we do that is not a mitzvah, every time I sleep, every time I eat, I drink, I bathe, whatever it is, I'm doing it l'shem shamayim. I'm doing it for the sake of God, because I'm trying to get closer to God. When a person thinks like this, then he's trying to emulate Hashem. He's trying to perfect everything he does. There's no perfect way to bathe. There's no perfect way to eat. Everyone eats differently. Some people eat with their left hand, some people with their right. So why? He's more perfect than I am because he's using his right hand versus the left hand? No. But if I'm doing it because the food is going to give me energy to serve God better, then I'm perfecting the act. And that's extremely important. Now that's what's really brought down. They asked Hillel once. Hillel was like, "Where are you going?" He goes, "I'm going to do a mitzvah." Going to do a mitzvah. What mitzvah are you going? He goes, "I'm going to the bathhouse." The student says, "You're going to take a bath? That's a mitzvah. What kind of mitzvah is that? You're going to the bathhouse." He goes, "Well," he said, "Listen, look at the non-Jews. They have statues of idols outside their places of worship, and they're paying a guy there to sit there and scrub the statue, right? Make it all clean." He goes, "I represent God, and I'm not going to be clean." So according to Hillel, I'm going and I'm performing a mitzvah by going to bathe. So this concept of trying to aim for perfection is part of the idea of self-growth and personal growth, because I work on that, on these little things all around me, on how do I eat, how do I bathe, how do I get dressed, and I cleave to God that way. I must find a way of dvekut. I find a way to cling to Him in a way that I've never done before. And that's what the human being has to strive for. He has to strive for that type of perfection that resembles the perfection of Hashem. And the world was created with elements of perfection, but it was also created with elements of deficiency. We were speaking about Kabbalah before, but this is deep Kabbalistic concepts now, right? On how the world was created. Hashem purposely created a world that was lacking. To Him, it's perfect. To Him, it's all perfect. What's lacking is that now we have to use our free will, and we access. God gave man free will to access both the perfection and the deficiency. Because if I make the wrong choice, then now I'm deficient in something, and I need to correct that. And if I make the right choice, then I make the world a more perfect place. Now, the world will eventually reach its perfect state. Either it's going to be done while we're all alive, or Hashem will just force it upon us at the time of Mashiach. That's the way it's looking, unfortunately, given the state of the world right now. But we all have the opportunity to make the world a perfect place, and that comes with a lot of the self-growth. That's, when I work on myself, I must make the world a better place based on the decisions that I make, on the free will that I am given to to perform those deeds. So Hashem's essence is perfect. Man's essence is imperfect, but the closest thing that we have in our essence that resembles Hashem is our free will, and that enables us to choose good. Perfectionism actually has gotten a bad name. What's the don't let perfect be the enemy of good, I think, or something along those lines. I think that's where it goes, right? Because a person that aims for perfection, and then he won't be satisfied with anything less. And sometimes you got to be satisfied with a little bit less than perfection, because there's two types of perfectionism. There's healthy perfection, and then there's excessive perfectionism. So someone who is excessive perfectionist is a person that sets goals beyond reach and reason, and he just says, "I'm going to ace every single test in my entire life, right through university, right through med school, right this, and if he gets a 99, then they're all depressed, because that's not healthy. That's not healthy. A healthy perfectionist sets high standards. Yes, you got high goals, but still within reach. An excessive perfectionist is one who's never satisfied with anything less than 100%, while the healthy one will enjoy the journey that I'm taking to get there. I want to become a healthy perfectionist hockey player. Right now, I can't even hold a hockey stick, okay? But if I practice and I start shooting, then maybe I'll get there, and maybe I'll and in my eyes, wow, I've accomplished a lot. An excessive perfectionist will become depressed when they don't reach their goal, when they experience failure, and the healthy one bounces back from failure. So how do we balance? How do we strike a balance between excessive and healthy, or excellence? And so the books of self-help write that the person should look for two areas of perfection. Whatever it is in your life, whatever is important to you, your studies, it could be your community, it could be prayer, it could be relationships, it could be charity, careers, whatever it is, two areas. But if you overdo it, then you're gonna lose most of whatever you're trying to accomplish. There was a story, a true story, of a El Al plane that was stuck on the tarmac at JFK Airport during the winter one year, and it was there for hours. And finally, the airport attendants felt that it was time to deboard the plane. and everybody's upset. And everyone on the plane to Israel is looking forward to going to Israel. And they finally told the deboard. It was already 1 a.m. by the time they told the deboard because of the snowstorm that was taking place, and the runway was already iced over. And they were trying to get food from El Al was trying to get food for the passengers that were now stuck in the airport for quite a few hours, but to no luck because they couldn't get trucks to JFK to do so. So on the plane happened to be Rabbi Ben-Zion Klatsko. Rabbi Ben-Zion Klatsko is the founder of a website called Shabbat.com. I don't know if you've heard of that website, Shabbat.com. He started this as a hobby where he would just look if people need a place for Shabbat. This would be a place that you put in your information. Are you a host or are you a guest? I actually used it. You remember? I don't know if you remember New York. We actually used this to set up when we did a little trip with the young girls of the community many years ago. We used Shabbat.com to get to find hosts for us when we were there in New York. Anyways, he decided to use this platform that he had. At the time, it wasn't even so big. And he made a little post over there. Here, we're stuck at the airport. If anybody can just bring a few bagels and cream cheese, that would really, really be really help. And it turns out that within hours, there was an immense amount of food deliveries. People driving from Lakewood, people driving from all parts of the tri-state, coming with their food for these 300 passengers, 400 passengers, whatever it is on the Al flight, and it was pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing, but that's who we are. Like, why would you expect anything less? And on that trip, there were a group of students that were I guess on a kiruv trip to Israel. And after they went through their whole amazing experience in Israel, they came back and they were interviewed by their respective organizations. Like, what was your favorite part of your Israel trip? And they said, before we even left. Because they go, what took place before we left was something that I've never seen before. And it goes, and we're truly proud to be such a part of people. That is emulating God. So when I do something like that, when I get in a car in the middle of a snowstorm, okay, because there's some people that don't have food, an hour away, like, who does that but Hashem? Like, so that's a part of me aiming for perfection in my action that I'm doing. I'm making a choice. I don't have to. I could have stayed home. There's no obligation for me to go drive to JFK, but I'm choosing this because I feel it's important to me, and I feel this is what Hashem would do. So that was really a conclusion of last week, and now we'll get into a little bit more tachlis, as they say. What tachlis is? Huh? Purpose, exactly. Now we're going to get to it. Old habits. Old habits are very hard to get rid of. It's Mark Twain, I think, was quoted saying, "Old habits can't be thrown out the upstairs window. They have to be coaxed down the stairs one step at a time." Because although as much we spoke about a perfection, our approach has always been, you got to take things slowly. You got to take things slowly, especially when dealing with personal growth. The Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, who some say was the founder of the Musar movement, the ethical movement in the last 200 years, he says it is easier to study the entire Talmud than change one of your attributes, one of your character traits. It is that difficult. Meaning, if I'm a person who is sad, that it is really hard not to be sad. And it's easier than just learn the whole Torah than to change that midah of sadness. I want to tell you something that took place in this week's parsha. This coming week's parsha. So it works out perfectly that we're here. This week's parsha, Abraham, Sarah passes away, and Abraham has to find a wife for his son Yitzchak. And he sends his servant, whose name was Eliezer. This man, Eliezer, served Abraham for decades. The most trustworthy man that he knows. Two of them went and fought 4 kings. Like, it was... And he makes Eliezer promise that you're not going to find a girl for my son from the Canaanites, from the Canaanim. Promise. I promise. So why did he make him promise? Why was he so? So here's the thing. Eliezer came from the Canaanim. And Eliezer, his most trustworthy servant, had a daughter. Good girl. He thought to himself, hey, Yitzchak needs a wife. My daughter, perfect match. But Abraham said no. Why not? Because listen, I know you have a daughter. It's the Midrash. It's not written in the Parsha. Because I know you have a daughter. But you come from Canaan. Canaan comes from Ham. Ham is one of the sons of Noach. And Ham is cursed. So your lineage is cursed. I come from Shem, the other son of Noach, and I'm blessed. And a blessed family, we can't get together with a cursed family. So Eliezer accepted. He accepted. And he went out to go find a wife. And eventually he found Rivka. And Rivka became Yitzchak's wife. Where did Rivka come from? Rivka was in the house of Lavan and Betuel. Lavan was her brother. Betuel was her father. Two of the biggest idol worshippers of the time. And Abraham welcomes Rivka into the house, and Rivka, Mamash takes the place of Sarah. She becomes one of the mothers of Klal Yisrael. What's going on here? You know Eliezer. You're with him your whole life. You know he's a legit guy. And he's telling you he has a daughter, but he says, no, sorry. Can't. But you're going to take a girl from a house of idol worshippers?
He came from a house of worship. Of idol worship.
Who? Abraham? True. But he got rid of that. But Lavan and Betuel are practicing idols. This is not something that they're still practicing idols. We know this is what's going to happen later with Yaakov, that Rachel had to go and hide the idols of her father. So it's not that Lavan was not did tshuva. So what are you doing accepting this girl as a daughter of idol worshippers versus someone that you trust? So here's the answer. The answer is, and this is a big yesod, a big fundamental idea in our religion. You can change someone's actions, but you can't change someone's behavior. The midot that a person has, that's based on what we're saying, are so ingrained in a person that Abraham said, listen, I know you're a good guy, but the bottom line is your family comes from Ham. You know what your great-grandfather did to Noach? You know how embarrassing, you know how careless he was when Noach got drunk and he exposed him? Because that you were cursed. And go, that's something I can't draw out. You're right, Rivka, she saw a lot of idol worship in her house. But guess what? She can do tshuva. I can give her a good speech, because an action can be changed. People sin. Everyone sins. I can change an action. I can change a value. I can change a belief. That's fine. I myself, Abraham says, right? I was also in the house of idol worshippers, but I saw the light. It's all good. Rivka's going to see the light. But you, Eliezer, I can't do it. I'm going to give you another example. And that's why Rivka, Baruch Hashem, pulled out of the house of Lavan and Betuel, and she was accepted as one of the imahot. Here's another example. Who can become a convert in Judaism? Who's allowed to become a convert? There are certain people that are allowed to join the Jewish nation, and certain people can't.
Oh, yeah.
Ammon
and Moab.
Okay, Ammon and Moab. Okay, very good. So, the Egyptians, you have to wait a certain amount of generations. Amalek is the arch enemy of the Jewish people. Like the worst of the worst. These are the people that went out and fought the Jews when they were the most vulnerable. If Joseph Stalin, Yimach Shemo, if he was around and he saw God's light and he says, you know what, I'm just so sorry for all the millions of people that I killed. Okay. I see that the Torah is a real way. I want to become a Jew. And he goes and sits down in front of the Bet Din. He goes, I'm serious. And he starts learning Gemara, Torah, and whatever. He studies all the halachot. Joseph Stalin could become a Jew. Amalek could become a Jew. There are two nations that cannot become a Jew ever. Ever. The nations of Ammon and Moab. Ever. The Torah says, why not? Why not? I'll tell you what the Torah says. Because when the Jewish people were passing through their land in the desert, they didn't give them bread and water. Huh? You're going to accept the mass murder of millions of people into your nation, but you're not going to allow the guy who refused to give you bread and water? Exactly. Because if your grandfather didn't give you bread and water, you're not going to give me bread and water either. It's in your blood. It's a trait. It's easier to learn the entire Talmud than to change one of your traits. But if a guy's a murderer and he does tshuva, I can change the act.
Why is that different?
I can change the behavior.
Murder,
Amalek was other things as well.
Hatred doesn't mean that too.
But you're right. But I can learn to love. But it's not the same as a bad midah. That is, yeah.
I don't get the difference between the action and the behavior. Like a behavior is an action.
If I'm a thief,
Yeah.
okay, what do you call it? Kleptomaniac. So I love to steal.
Right.
Okay, with enough inner strength and will and learning and knowledge, okay, I can change my actions. I can become a non-thief.
Mm-hmm.
But a person who possesses a bad midah, a bad trait.
But isn't that a trait? Like it's confusing.
You could argue that it is, but there's an action involved. There's an action involved. There's a value. There's a belief. Okay, that certain thing is mine, and there's an action. And I can always do teshuvah when I steal because all I gotta do is give back what I stole. Okay, but when it comes to a midah, it's much more difficult to be done. And the people of Ammon and Moab, they were never. That's something that the Torah says they can't get out of their system.
So what's an example of a midah?
Stinginess, right? Is
Stinginess.
one. Again, it's not. There are ways to do it, but it's very difficult. And definitely the goyim are not going to be people that are going to work on that.
Right.
You know, again, nowadays this doesn't really apply because we don't know who's an Amalek, we don't know who is a Moab or an Ammon. All the nations have been mixed. But assuming that, you know, a person can walk around with a T-shirt, I am Ammon and Moab, and we still don't say that they're Ammon and Moab, right? It does, these laws will only happen, you know, maybe when Mashiach comes. So that's the concept of taking things slowly and understanding that it's difficult to attain. But you always got to be constantly moving. You always got to be, you know, progressing. This is the mitzvah of Kedoshim Tihu. Kedoshim Tihu means you shall be holy. The directive, the commandment was given in the future tense. That the Jews have an obligation to be holy. Tihu. Because meaning I got to be holier tomorrow than I am today. And today needs to be better than yesterday. And that's a concept of Tihu. I always like to compare it like to the world is a downward escalator. I may have even said this last week. That you're trying to go up a downward escalator. And if you stop walking and stop pushing, you're just going to get yourself pulled back down. You probably heard the following story. Same Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, who went to a shoemaker to get his shoes repaired. And the hour was late. It was getting very dark. It's like winter in Canada. And he noticed that the oil in the lamp was decreasing, diminishing. The light was flickering. And he said, listen, the rabbi told him, goes, listen, I see it's getting dark here. I don't mind coming back tomorrow, and you can finish the shoe. And the shoemaker said, don't worry. I can work very well by the candlelight. And his line was, Kol zman she'aner dolek efshar od letaken. As long as a candle burns, it's still possible to fix the shoes in this case. I actually have a painting in my house with that line written. Kol zman she'aner dolek efshar od letaken. As long as the fire is burning, you can still fix. In other words, what's the deep significance of this? As long as we're alive, as long as we're breathing, then I have the ability to repair my ways, and a person should never despair. At the same time, how do I go about this? This act of self-improvement, this of self-growth. We can't think of it in huge terms. We can never say, okay, I'm just going to fix everything all at once, because I love to think big. I'm going to change the world. It's great that you want to change the world, but you got to first work on yourself before you go and change the world. It's normal. The problem is it's normal for people to think that way. Rosh Hashanah says that a person always wants to think of fixing the world in the largest way possible. Global peace. Yeah, that was a big thing when I was growing up. Now it's, what's Greta's thing? Climate change, right? Sorry, climate change. That's it, climate change. If you care about climate change, okay, so, I don't know, ride a bike. Instead of taking your car, ride your bike a little bit more often. But, think small, right? Instead of going out there and trying to change, the opinions of everybody else. So, and where do we see this? We actually see this in everything that we do, everything that we take. If I'm in pain and I need to take medicine, you need to take an Advil or a Tylenol, how much in that pill is actual pain reliever? It's very small. The actual pain relieving ingredient is very minute. Everything else is just fillers. Take things easy, and you'll see how things will change. And we have to learn to appreciate even the smallest improvement. Right? If I become sad one time less than before, then check mark. That's very good. Right? If I speak a little bit more kindly to others, I'm still really not good at it. People think I'm like brute and again strict. But this one time I felt I was nice, like that story with the rabbi. Check mark. Right? If your prayers are ever so slightly improved, that one Shabbat or that one day, check mark. Because you're going to feel pleasure. You're going to feel enjoyment with every drop of improvement. And you're not going to be discouraged because you felt, oh man, I didn't reach that excessive perfection that we were talking about before, and therefore I feel like a failure. The other week on last Shabbat, I was speaking about the importance of filtering negativity and avoiding negativity before approaching things positively, and I was speaking about pros and cons of technology, and I can see this really great Facebook video about how to bake a cake, or I get this really cool discount code at some store because I saw this ad on Facebook. But there's a lot of negativity that is spewed from Facebook, and there's a lot of negativity that's spewed on social media. And I challenged some people after we were having a talk afterwards during the Kiddush and beyond. People were talking about it because it is a heated conversation when it comes to this. And I challenged the group here as well. Is there somebody on social media that you shouldn't be following? Ask yourself. And if the answer is yes, and I know the answer is yes, there's a rhetorical question, then unfollow them. Unfollow them. And it doesn't have to be like someone who made anti-Semitic remarks, like a Kanye or those guys where, okay, yeah, I still follow them because I like their music, but Rabbi had a good idea, so I'm going to unfollow him. Even if it's someone, this is where it's going to get a little bit tricky. Ask yourself the following question. Why am I following this person? Why? And if you don't have a good answer to that question, then you probably shouldn't follow them, because all it's doing is you're involving yourself in their business that you have no business involving yourself in. So click the unfollow. Click the unfollow. And I know it's tough to do. I know it's tough to hear. You're one generation lower than me, right? And it's something that you kind of grow up in. Take it one step further. Is there an app that you feel you don't need, that is just sitting there, that is taking up a lot of your time? These are things that really develop self-growth, personal growth. It really does. You might not think it, you might not believe it, but the less I know about person X's life is going to make me better, because I'm not learning anything from that person. It's not like they're like this world-renowned chef and I'm marking down recipes. Okay, in that case, great, you're learning. There's a reason why you're following that person. But if it's solely just to see their life and what they're doing behind closed doors, and sometimes I wonder, I go, why are you watching this? Oh, and I hear conversation, oh man, you should see what this person's doing now. Oh, I can't believe what became of her. I can't believe what became of her. But why are you following this person? She doesn't live in the city. She lives on. But why do you care? So now it just becomes an opportunity for Moti Shemra to slander, to talk bad about others, because you are aware of things that she does. What businesses did you do? Why does it interest you, Bichlal? And I think that's something that, I know we took a little tangent, but I think it's also it's the same idea of maybe taking one small little step to improve your life. And that's a small step. It may be a big step in your eyes, but it's small. Big step would be like, let's just get rid of everything and just go back to flip phones, right? So let's okay. We're not even. I'm not even there yet, right? I even got a smartphone. Okay, but if it's Instagram, like a few years ago, I got rid of Instagram. I just didn't see a purpose of it. Like personally, I saw my account. I just kind of closed it or whatever. But I just didn't see a purpose. It was taking too much of my time. I'm working on the next one soon. I went on Facebook for a bit. I went back. Now I just post Urine. But it really is a time consumer. It's something I don't have much time for. But it does take time that I wish I could take back now, because there's just so much nonsense that I see, and I feel bad for saying it. And so that's my own personal challenge. Knowing where you stand, self-knowledge. Self-knowledge is something that is key. The beginning of personal growth is profound self-knowledge. Where are you in your, we spoke about this last week, because every person is different. Everyone is going to embark on a different trail to reach that their own personal destination, and that is crucial. That is crucial in our journey to self-perfection. There's many different types of conduct that a person can have, because each person is different, even far removed from one another. We're all friends, but we all share differences. Someone is calm, another person is angry, another person is sad, a person is arrogant, a person is humble. One person is lustful, a person has desires for this, a person craves this, a person loves food, person hates food, person loves meat, person only eats veggies. And one guy's gonna spend crazy amount of money, and another person, like we said, is gonna clench his fist and not give anything. That's okay, but it's self-knowledge, is knowing where you are and where you stand, and that's the first step. Because until I know that, until I understand where I am, there's no way for me to improve. I can't look at other people. I need to measure myself. The midot are the measurements of myself. So, Bezrat Hashem, as we continue this talk, in a few weeks' time, is to understand that idea and that importance. Bezrat Hashem, I think next time we'll look at how the Torah itself plays a role into our personal growth. We'll look at different examples from various characters in Chumash and abroad. We certainly have a lot of them right now with Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Again, going back to what I spoke about last week, for those that were not there, I don't mind sharing it now, because I think it is very much connected. It was a big fight last week in the Parsha. It was a big fight between Abraham and Sarah on what to do. And this is something we don't like to talk about, but they had a big argument and on what to do with their son Yishmael. Yishmael was Abraham's son. It wasn't Sarah's son. Sarah gives birth to Yitzchak. Yishmael, bad boy, right? 15 years old. He's going to the market. He's bringing idols. Okay, now what I do? I have my son Yitzchak. He's the one who's going to carry the torch. And this guy is coming and he's influencing my son. So what does Sarah say? Oh, get out. Abraham takes offense to this. What do you mean? It's my son. Can't give my son. And they really get in an argument. It doesn't go into details, but the pasuk, the verse has very strong language. Vayera be'enav. It was evil in Abraham's eyes. I can't do this, especially that Abraham was a person of chesed. How am I supposed to do this to my eldest child? Just throw him out, just on the streets? And they were battling back and forth until God says, Abraham, you have to listen to your wife. And you probably wanted to hear that, but yeah, you have to listen to your wife. So Chafetz Chaim says, what was the point of contention between the two? What were they arguing about? So Sarah, it was pretty easy, right? I have my son. I love my son. He's a holy kid. He's going to be the next leader. Ki be'Yitzchak yikar lecha zera. And this boy is influencing him for the bet. So I can't have him around. Understandable. So what about Abraham? Where does Abraham fit into this? Well, why does he want to keep his son there? His wife's got a pretty good argument.
If there was a mouth, we'll never come back.
Huh?
If there was a mouth, we'll never have a chance to teach you that.
Okay, so connected to that, Abraham had such belief into every person that he said, if I keep Yishmael here, Yitzchak will influence him for the positive. And he was willing to take that risk. He was willing to take that risk that Yitzchak will change him. And Sarah says, I'm not having any of it. And God's ultimate decision was to listen to Sarah, meaning Sarah was right. Because before you can advance in anything positive, in anything that is good, you must be able to filter out the negative. The David HaMelech in Tehillim says, Sur Merah, and then Va'asetov. First, you remove the evil, eliminate the evil, and then you can do good. It doesn't work the other way. You can't expose yourself to negativity and expect to live a positive life. And I mentioned this very, very awful thing I heard on the news about this debate that was going on in the news this last week about this couple that took their 5-year-old son, and they did a birthday party for their 5-year-old son at a restaurant in the United States. Did you hear this? Yeah, in a restaurant chain, and I'm not going to even mention the name here, but it's a restaurant that sexualizes women. This is where they did the birthday party for the 5-year-old son. And they were talking about it, and thankfully both the hosts agree, like, that's crazy, like, who does something like that, 5-year-old kid? But then one of the hosts said something that really caught my attention. He says, he said, I don't know why he would do that for his 5-year-old son, but not that it's going to make a difference in his life anyways. Meaning to say, he's only 5 years old, he's probably going to forget about this. I go, whoa, is this guy wrong? This guy is so wrong. Because what's going to happen 5-10 years down the road when he's looking at his pictures of his 5-year-old birthday party and he sees all these people around that are pretty much not wearing any clothes, okay? And, oh, wow, my parents brought me here. So I guess I can bring my kids here. If I was able to see this at 5 years old, then imagine what I'm able to see at 10 years old, at 20 years old. So how can you say it's not going to have an impact on the person? But that's going to have an impact on a person. And that's I think the mistake. And that's I think the message that Hashem wanted to tell us in these stories is listen to Sarah. Is to get rid of the evil before you can approach anything that is positive. And I ended off with this, and I think it was a very, very powerful idea. That was the last thing Sarah ever said that we know she ever said in her life. Because that's it. This week's parasha, she's already dead. So the last thing we know in our Torah that Sarah said was, Abraham, please send him away. And as much as people criticize her being too harsh, come on, be a little more elastic and be a little more giving. But this is what she said, and she got she received God's blessing. So her claim to fame and her legacy that she leaves behind is the son that she bore, Yitzchak, being pure because she was able to rid the house of any negative ideals and ways of thinking. So Bezrat Hashem will use that to push us through the next dark few weeks of winter, and but lightening up our ways and clinging to Hashem and many more. Bezrat Hashem. All right. Recording stopped. Yeah.
Okay, so I have 3